Thank you for joining us on another episode of Latter Gay Stories podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Ashworth. We have another great podcast version for you today. We are visiting with a true mama dragon, and we'll talk a little bit about what that mama dragon does for the LGBT community, and what it takes to be a better ally, what it takes to be a friend, and most of all, what she has done to be a mother to an LGBT son, a child that had come out, and how her path and how her experience in understanding how best to help her son has influenced the lives of so many other people within the LGBT community. The Latter Gay Stories podcast is your opportunity to understand the intersection of sexuality and reality as we discuss the very real topics that impact and influence us at LGBT Avenue and LDS Street. If you feel if you feel like you want to financially support the Latter Gay Stories podcast and help us to continue building bridges between this LDS community and LGBT world, we invite you to make a donation to the podcast. The donations that come into the podcast very literally help us to share more stories just like the one we're going to listen to today. You can make a financial contribution to the podcast in two simple and easy ways. First, by visiting our website at lattergaystories.org and clicking on the Donate tab, or another simple and easy way is by sending us a text. Simply text the word STORIES, STORIES, to the number 77948. That's 77948. You can make a monthly or one-time donation to the podcast, and I promise you we will use your money to help further the message that you have continued to see over the last 8 years on the Latter Gay Stories podcast. Now, without further ado, and really excited to have our guest on today, I want to welcome to the podcast Cher McCoy. Welcome, Cher.
Thank you.
Excited to be with you because you are a delightful person, and from the moment I met you, I was just attracted to your kindness, your willingness to help the LGBT community, and I wanted to get to know a little bit more about Cher.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet.
So welcome to the podcast where we dive into your whole personal life.
Oh boy. Well, let's go.
Are you ready for this?
Yes.
I'm thinking, where to start with Cher, because, the last time that we were together, I think might have been at Love Loud. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of fun, actually.
It was a blast.
We saw a lot of crazy things.
I loved it. Every bit of it.
And we were working at a little booth together, volunteering and watching the crowds of people who were enjoying Love Loud. And so for those who don't know you, let's first jump into Cher's world and your story. Where did the LGBT advocacy, where did the LGBT topic begin in your world?
Well, it began years and years ago when I worked in design. I always had good friends and coworkers that were gay. So that's always just been my world. But where it came together and I knew I had to do something was when my son Blue came out. And it was on Mother's Day a couple years ago. And he was brought into my room. And I don't even know if he said it. I think my daughter-in-law either said it or somebody said it, but it was pretty emotional sitting there. And it was only me and my son, and then my daughter-in-law was sitting there because her brother's gay, and she told my son that it wasn't fair for me not to know.
So your son comes out to you on Mother's Day of
On
all
Mother's
days.
Day, yeah.
Is that a good thing, a bad thing?
It's never a good thing.
He comes out. How did you take the news?
I just sat there and cried. I just cried and cried and cried, and he cried. And I didn't react because, growing up, you know that it's there. You're just, as an LDS mom, you're not ever given any kind of a roadmap. Like, if these things happen, here's what you do.
Let's talk about that, because I think this is really good space. Where does a parent, LDS or not, get training on understanding what it's like or how to react in a coming out experience? How to prepare for their son or daughter to come out as gay or bi or trans, where do you gain resources? Where do you find education? Where do you get training?
At that point, there was nothing. There was Facebook. And I happened to mention, because I saw Becky McIntosh. I didn't even know Becky. I was friends with Scott. And Becky had spoken at the North Star Conference and was speaking about her LGBT son. And all I wrote on the post was, I wish I could have heard her. And boy, she zeroed in on me and messaged me and gave me a film to watch. But it was like, there's another? Honestly, I thought I was the only mother in Gilbert, Arizona that had a gay Mormon kid. And that wasn't that long ago.
And so Blue comes out, and you harness the news and figure out exactly what that means. Let's start talking about steps forward. How did you move forward? What was that experience like?
So as he's telling me, the voice in my head kept saying, you have a project. You have to learn about this. And I was like, I don't need another project. I don't want another, because I've been an advocate for homeowners and at legislature, all this political stuff. And I was like, nope, nope, nope. And it was, yep, this is it. So before I could open my mouth or do anything, I had to go out and learn, because I didn't want to make mistakes. I didn't want to say the wrong things. There's so many factors to it you don't know. So I just found others, and I think that's what we have to do. I think people, especially LDS people, have to be more out there so people know that they can go to you.
Now you talk about mistakes. What mistakes were you so worried about making?
Well, for instance, when he first came out and he said it to me, it's hard to say, but he had said, we were crying, I still get emotional over this, but he said, do you wish I was dead? And I said, no, I wish I was. Because all I could see was, your life just got so much harder and people are going to be so awful to you. And I would have been taking the hit and take off the planet if you didn't have to go through this. Now, he read it a little differently, and then we had a conversation a year later where we cleared it all up. I mean, we were at Pride, I was running a booth, and his friends were lining up to hug, and he brought 10 of them because I'm not a known hugger, so he brought 10 just to prove my mother was gonna have to hug. He was testing me. And I said, and he said, my dad was okay, but my mom, I said, no, is this not enough? So, we had a lot of miscommunication at the time, but yeah, it was a hard thing to say, and I regret saying that, but I didn't want his life to be tough. I know people are mean.
What was family life like in terms of handling an LGBT discussion? Were there, I don't want to label like your family is a homophobic family, but was that ever discussed in the family? Were there times that you now look back and say, we shouldn't have done this, we shouldn't have said these things, or was there things in your training? And now I know you mentioned a little earlier that you had gay friends or LGBT friends, so or was there a sense of understanding that community already, and therefore what Blue might have heard inside the home wasn't as difficult to come out because he knew your home was safe or friendly? Or
he knew it, but he's got I've got 7 kids, so 6 of them are boys, and then my daughter's the youngest, and he was different anyway. He was different.
How so?
Well, like you have all the boys playing baseball. Take Blue to baseball, and he's just like, okay, and he played 1 year just for the pictures. He wanted to play the tuba. He was in High School Musical as a kid. He's singing Phantom of the Opera in the middle of Walmart, where you're like, okay, you're different. So we always knew he was different, and the boys would just kind of be amused because they were a lot older. Did they ever say, oh, that's gay, or possibly? I know I made a comment years ago that I didn't even know I made, that my daughter-in-law's dad is a psychologist, and he pulled me aside and said, what are you going to do if your child's gay? I didn't even know what I said. And I said, I would love him. I was kind of like thrown back by that. So he saw something in it that I didn't realize. But I don't, when I asked Blue about it, he didn't feel like the brothers, it was scary to tell the brothers. It's not a lie. But we all decided that we would, this was our family thing. We were all going to surround him with love. in a circle, and anybody who didn't want to be in a circle was more than welcome to step out.
That's great advice.
You know?
Similar advice that I give as we're discussing the coming out experience. So often people within the LGBT community, when they feel compelled to come out, they feel like they are now laying their world out there for people to accept. And I like to switch that thinking to allow other people to come into my life. When I come out, it's not coming out to tell you or ask you for your permission. I'm coming out to say, get to know me a little better.
Oh,
I'm inviting you into my world, and I'm inviting you into my world on my terms. And I'm allowing you to come in. And when we change the narrative, when we control the narrative, and when that person who's coming out comes out with that in mind, it makes a much bigger difference.
Yeah.
Because they're in control of their coming out experience. And when some people, and the hard truth is some people don't accept it. Some people aren't comfortable when you come out, and some people will turn from you. But while you maintain control of that coming out experience, you essentially have said, I invited you in, you rejected the invitation, life goes on for me. And it doesn't, it's not that you severed the relationship, but someone else chose not to engage with you. And so I appreciate that in your family, that you said, here's the circle, and everyone is invited. And if you choose not to join.
That's what I said to my mom. She's 83. I said, I hate to tell you this, but here's what is happening. And if you don't accept it, I would hate that my 83-year-old mother's not in our circle. So she had to accept it. I mean, his best friend came out when he was 14, David. And I would say to David, don't come out yet. You know, don't do it yet. You're 14. You're just going into high school. And it was a rough high school that he and Blue went to. I mean, not that rough, but it was mostly Mormon. So really, you're going to add that to it? And they were attacked and picked on, and there's a lot of, I didn't know that they were being bullied for 4 years. I knew there was some, but I didn't know how bad. But what was nice is Blue could come to me because he knew that I wouldn't take it lightly. When he finally said, this is what's really happening. You know, I went to the school and I called everybody to the table. It's like, we're all going to have a conversation about this one. And including David, because his mom had died. And he had gotten kicked out, and Blue knew to come to me to say, David's living in the park. I said, go get him. So whatever we had, he knew that I would be the advocate for. That is not going to happen in my world. The part I didn't understand are the parents that reject him. I can see being sad. I can see that your whole world just got shifted. When you think you're going right and you now are making an abrupt left, you got to make some adjustments. My husband, I thought, would be the toughest. He's awesome. I mean, he just said, he looked up girls to date that were a little bit butch. He said, well, you got, because he knew that Blue always wanted a family. So he's trying to figure out how you can get this together and put this together. And we're standing there looking at the computer going, okay. Blue and I are like, and finally Todd said, you know what, you're my son, I love you, it doesn't matter, just let me know what you need. That's the way it's been with him. So I had it easier, really.
How so?
Because my boys and my daughter and everybody was like, he's my brother, we love him. He's Blue. So I had it easier. Now, I didn't say anything in the ward for a long time. Coming out in the ward is tough.
And that's the journey I want to take now,
right.
Because you probably had a very white picket fence Mormon world prior to
Gilbert, Arizona.
Gilbert, Arizona, prior to Mother's Day. And then something shifts, something happens in your world. Let's discuss that. Let's walk down that trail. How does your religious world work? How does the spiritual world work? And I appreciate that you said that you also had that experience now to discuss that with the ward members. This now becomes part of the vernacular at church. And let's walk that path and discuss how that went.
So it was very hard to even say anything, and I didn't for a while. And that was tougher on me because I'm such an out there person. So I don't like secrets anyway. But and talking to the bishop, you know, he made me feel a lot better. He said, wow, you know, your child he's got the perfect mother for this. And, you know, that made me feel a little bit better. But it's nobody wants to talk about it. And I didn't know how were they going to come and just tell me one day Blue's exed. Are we all in trouble? I mean, it wasn't but, 5-6 months later that the policy came out? So it was 2015. Here you think you've got a handle on it, and then boom, and you just kind of tiptoe around it. Well, it got to be where I was contacted by the church, and we went and did this, changed the website. I decided, no, we had to talk about this. This is not. So when they asked for discussions, what we'd like to talk about in Relief Society, this is the first thing I talk about. This is the topic. And so we did have a major topic on it, and we showed the films from mormonandgay.lds.org, and it just continues. So now I'm kind of known as that the gay Mormon mom. But the cool thing is people come to talk to me and say, so and so's child is coming out and they're having the toughest time. So it's almost like you have to go do an intervention.
Let's talk about the initial reaction from your bishop.
Okay.
How was that? Did you immediately go in and discuss this with your bishop?
No.
How did word begin to trickle through? And specifically, and maybe even young men's presidencies, or how were Blue's leadership, the leaders in those callings dealing with it? Did they come to you? Did they go to him? How did that unfold?
They just tiptoed around it. Blue felt like it was his senior year, so he felt like they kept inviting him to all these campouts. And he said to me, how can I go? I said, were you attracted to these boys before? He goes, no. I said, well, then you go. And you are who you are. The leaders who became our new bishop, but they were fabulous. I mean, but nobody really talked to me about it, but they didn't reject him either. So there was no, oh, you can't be here, you're gay kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But there was still this kind of denial in the entire, what did somebody say to me, one of the leaders? The same thing I'd said to David, no, you're not gay, you're just artistic. And they said about Blue, I said, no, he really said he is. So, and I think people are trying to be kind, but, they just don't know how to react to you. And I felt like, well, we'll see who I lose as friends. Okay, I'm ready.
Was there a spiritual shift in your world? Was
Mm-hmm.
Was there a...
Very much so.
Let's talk about that.
So because you're eternal family, everybody's sealed, all of this stuff, and you realize, wait a minute, they're telling me this, but yet I know this child was born under the covenant. And there's so many shifts, you're right, there's so many things that you look at differently now that I'm worlds apart now. I mean, I just question a lot of things now.
What are examples of some of those things?
Well, obviously the choosing to be gay, that's ridiculous, but I believe that these kids are warriors that are coming down. I think if they chose it up there, and I think that they have the light of Christ in their eyes. Everyone I meet that's gay, including you, has the light of Christ in their eyes, and it just blows me away.
I'm not out yet.
Oh. Okay, maybe not you, but you still have the light of Christ in your eyes. So. Okay. But they did. And it was a shift for me because everything that the church said would happen that's bad has not happened. So you're right. So.
Hold on, say that again.
Everything the church said bad that would happen has not happened.
So everything on this side of the aisle, lack of spirit, counterfeit love, a decrease of happiness,
no.
The inability to discern right from wrong.
No. In fact, you see it stronger. And it has opened up so much to me. I used to say, I don't know why I don't get a lot of this as far as feelings. And now it opens up to where you can love larger. I have the capacity to love people like I've never thought. I also don't judge like I used to. I do not judge. And it's just amazing to me on my own self.
Why does this topic impact that? What about a single coming out experience has made this much of a transformative difference in your world?
Because when you see it happen to somebody you know and you love and you gave birth to, you know darn well there's nothing that happened to that child that changed any of that. He is who he is. He was born perfect. So therefore, if he is born perfect, you were born perfect. Everybody that I meet is born perfect. What you do with it is, is your choice, and I don't have to like all of it, but I certainly support it. So it has made me also more, I question a lot more, and I'll do it publicly, and I'll do it in Sunday school. For instance, I sat in Sunday school, and this gentleman was a mission president. He was our teacher. And he started to go off about Caitlyn Jenner. And I stopped and said, are you really saying that Caitlyn Jenner is the ill of the world? Why are you choosing one person? That's awful, and I just kind of went off on that. And then he went off on something else about those LGBT that don't like oaks and da-da-da-da. Well, I literally was digging my hand into my husband's leg, and I said, wow. And this man that was on this riff said, yeah, wow. I said, no, wow. And I stood up, and I really thought, do I take this 83-year-old man out in front of everybody? I mean, I was so ticked. And I just said, no, you're wrong. And I walked out. Apparently I slammed the door, but I walked around the building like 22 times, and then I marched into the bishop's office and said, no more, no more. You do not know who's hearing you. And everyone says, well, you're worried about your son. I go, I'm not worried about my son. I'm worried about everybody's sons and daughters that hear this. So yeah, has there been a shift? You bet. And it's almost been militant.
Good thing?
I think it is.
Other members of their ward, has anyone else come out? Have there been parents? Have there been other secret allies that have now united the force with you to say, let's do this together?
Yep, sure has. So there's been quite a few kids that came out in the ward. At last count, I think we had 7, and I know there's more standing in the wings. Obviously, I'm not going to name anybody or say anything, but I know who they are. When you wear your rainbows to church every Sunday, they know who you are. The bishop that I came out to, his son came out, and I had a chance, and he didn't accept it well. And I just recently, when he visited, beelined for him to remind him what he said to me, and he didn't remember that. And I just said, you said I was the greatest parent, so why wouldn't you be the greatest parent? So you start to be more bold, you want to help folks, and I do. And I'm like, anybody can talk to me, but we've had probably 4 more kids come out. A good friend of mine's daughter, and they showed up at Pride last year to hug, and we were stunned because nobody's ever shown up that isn't, and we didn't know that they had a child that hadn't come out yet. So, but they made a big deal about it, husband and wife, and they made a big deal about, we're here for Blue, he was in my scout camp, and we're so proud, and that just made everybody's world. Well, this year, I've had 4 or 5. I've got a friend up the street, an advocate. She didn't have anybody in this world. She hugged everybody. She hugged people getting a Coke. And we have drawn more people in. I've gotten more people who have shown up to come and hug on their own time. It's been amazing, absolutely amazing. So I would probably say going from 0 people to 8 this year. It was a record.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting. Because when you see that people get it, we're not just being nasty to be nasty to the church. We love the church. We love Christ. But we want you to show that same love to everybody.
Speaking to the mother or father who might be listening to this podcast who questions whether or not they may or may not have a son or daughter who identifies along the LGBT spectrum, what advice do you have to that parent?
Don't reject them. Do not reject them.
And what do you mean by reject?
Well, if you're upset because you feel like that they've chosen this and this is ruining your family, just don't speak. Just don't. Just go get help before you even talk to them. As they're telling you, just hug them and love them and then find your help. But don't speak, because I'm telling you, it's damaging if you do the wrong thing.
What are some examples of damaging language?
Well, a lot of damaging languages, for some reason, parents connect pedophilia with this, and I don't get it at all. But you can't be around the younger children. What? I love you, but don't bring anything over here. You can't have it in the house. You can't. What? Have what? And my answer is, did you love him yesterday? Well, what changed? Because he didn't just show up like this.
Do you think these are inherent traits or feelings that a parent naturally feels when a son or daughter comes out? Or do you think this is training from society or church? Because when you say don't go out into society or don't show yourself with your gay partner, we love you, but I remember in 2006, those were words that were spoken directly from Elder Oaks. Asked specifically if he had a gay child in an interview with the church, how he would treat that gay child. And he said, don't expect me to take you outside. Don't expect me to show up in public with you. You can come visit, but don't expect to stay with your partner. So do you think these are inherent thoughts and feelings of a family member as a parent, or is this society's pressure? Is this a religious pressure that is ingrained or taught into somebody?
I think it's a religious pressure, because how would you know to do that? How would you know? How would you know to think that way? I mean, it's like Elder Oaks saying that. Okay, it's like Love Loud. They couldn't sell any tickets to Love Loud until the church said, okay, it's okay for Love Loud. All of a sudden, everybody's going, right?
Sells out.
Sells out. It's kind of the same thing here as, well, what do they say before I can react? I don't care what they say. They don't know everything. And that has been one of the things that has kind of blown my mind, that they, don't know. Sometimes I think we know more than they do, and that's kind of scary. And it's hard to say that out loud, too, because then everybody thinks you're apostate and you can, go down that path. Well, they don't know. And for someone to say, I wouldn't go outside with my own child, no, then we have issues and we've got to talk them through. And I've had lots and lots and lots of the kids say, oh, I wish you were my mom, and I was laughing. You probably don't, but I would at least stand for you, and I would make sure that you're okay. I would just tell these other families, please don't react until you even go in and drop to your knees and say a prayer. Don't react. Just love them, and then go figure out what you need to do. But this can't be a surprise to you.
I think there's wisdom in that, in the idea of just embracing them for who they are.
Right.
When I came out to my parents, that was a similar experience for me. So shocker, I am out.
I'm so glad I didn't out you. Oh man.
Just kidding. So really, when I discussed that with my parents, it was, I'm the same person that I've always been. I feel no differently today than I did yesterday. It's just now, again, back to that coming out experience. I'm letting you into my life. I'm tired of the walls. I'm tired of the facade. I just want you to know who I am.
And that's wonderful.
And the same, and I think that is a general rule with anybody that comes out. They just want you to know them and understand them for who they are, and not necessarily what they are. They like the same things that they had interest. The fact that your son wasn't interested in football or baseball, but interested in the theater and arts.
Right.
Like you said, it's not a shocker.
Mm-mm.
That's the same person that we've always known. Mm-hmm. And whether or not their sexuality or traits of sexuality better explain why we did what we did is not even the question. Mm-mm. It's just that person. And
everybody's different, whether they're gay or not. I mean, I sometimes wish that, my other kids would have been gay. But I just think honestly, it's a badge of honor. But, and I would tell other parents that. I would say, how lucky you are, how blessed you are that this person is in your family. Do you get it? Because it opens up so much, and it allows you to just love larger. I'm not, if you'd known me before, I wasn't like super judgmental, but if somebody had done something like, oh, well, that figures, or whatever, I don't do any of that anymore. You could pretty much dance in your little G-string in front, I don't know. You'd have to go to Pride a couple times. And I tell people, when you come to Pride, it's their place, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're all children of our Heavenly Father, and we have to help them. And I don't want to be any way contributing to anybody's angst over it. And especially with the suicide rate. My gosh, if you lost your child over this, is that worth it? I don't think so. I know. So
let's talk a little bit about life prior to your son coming out, and now he's been out for a number of years. Marked difference?
Marked difference.
Explain that.
Well, he had a lot of anxiety, and he still does, and that was something that we never recognized, depression and anxiety, and that's just started to come out. But we now know that kind of goes with the program, so we're able to get him more help. But it's kind of freeing to have him out because, you're not wondering, well, are you dating her? Are you doing this? Are you doing
Why
that?
are you not married? When are you going to have kids?
Correct. And I knew he wanted kids, but I'd say, when he'd be going to the prom, I was saying that when he'd go to the prom, I go, so you're dating girls? And his answer was, Mom, please. So he and I would ask questions of each other without even saying the answers. He was answering me, and it was basically, yes, stop talking about it, So it's freeing. Yeah, he has a partner. I'm okay with that. It's a lot nicer now. It is. And he has a good partner who just came out, and he's actually a wonderful person.
So let's talk a little bit about your advocacy and what you're doing directly within the community.
So I joined the Mama Dragons. I found them.
Okay, let's talk about who are the Mama Dragons?
Mama Dragons were a Facebook bunch of LDS moms who needed to figure it out because, they had a gay kid and nobody knew what to do. So there were 3 or 4 of them, and I first met Jill online, Jill Hazard Rowe, and it was just like a breath of fresh air. And you just show up for things. We showed a hug. We put bat signals out, we call, that somebody's in trouble and this, who's the nearest Mama Dragon who can go and help. And it is pretty rewarding. It's just rewarding. It's sad at the same time, and I really try to get to the parents, but a lot of times they don't want to hear it. So that's what Mama Dragons do. So they try to make themselves available, and it's interesting when people know you're a Mama Dragon, man, they have all kinds of questions. So I think it opens up a whole other dialogue too. How did you do it? What did you do? Kind of things. And a lot of people thank us, and I never understood that. I was like, you don't have to thank me. We're just doing what we should be doing. Not doing anything special. So I got into that, and then I got into affirmation, which was wonderful. And I started volunteering for them and really felt like, what a great organization. And they do a lot of great work. So whatever they need, I'm there for. Whatever, put signs up, whatever. And then I do a lot of advocacy with All here in Arizona, and we have a booth every year. And I somehow inherited the job of being chief booth, person.
Coordinator.
Yeah, exactly. Bryce calls me vice president of events or something. I don't know. I have some fancy title, but it really doesn't mean anything. But it is put the booth up and get people, and that to me is like our Super Bowl. Pride. Oh my gosh, I love Pride so much.
Which Arizona Pride just wrapped up.
It did, because we can't do it in June, because we'd all be dead.
Sweltering heat.
But we will come to, I'll go to San Diego Pride, I'll go to Salt Lake Pride. I mean, that's what I sat down and told my bishop. Now in the summer, here's where I'll be. He has no problem with that. So I think if people are just open and honest and they say they're advocates, I have more advocates now in my neighborhood than, we just recently started hanging the rainbow flag. And the HOA said, what? And I said, get over it. It'll be fine. Rainbows are pretty. So you just let people know. And once you let them know where you stand on something, they either respect you or they don't, but you get it done. They don't mess with your LGBT kids, I can tell you that.
That is true.
I mean, I had neighbors who came to me and said, oh, Blue's not out. Blue's okay. He's not, And yet their own children came out a year later. I said, Okay, so here's where you're going to need me.
I think, let's call a spade. Mormons breed gay children.
We do.
For some reason.
I still think we breed the warriors. I do. You guys are warriors. Do you not see that? I think you are.
Well, stripling I'm not, but among 2,000 I might be.
I seriously think, and the young ones that are coming now, like that young man at BYU, could you stand up and applaud him? Come on.
Interesting topic, because so much of the comments and so many of the reactions from LDS circles are not favorable.
No, they're not, and I'm in there fighting them and saying, are you kidding? He has helped so many people besides himself. There are kids sitting there going, wait, what? I can speak of it?
And that's what baffles me, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to sit down and have this podcast interview, because how do we reach into the LDS world to say it is okay to love, it is okay to accept, it is okay to expand your horizons bigger and greater than this small-minded box.
Correct.
That you have convinced yourself is the only room and space available.
Correct. And I honestly think that the brethren keep that box because it contains people, because once people think outside the box, maybe things get a little wild. I don't know. But I'm so outside that box, I don't even know where the box is. The thing is the only fight that you fight with me is I say, well, tell me, is that what Christ would have done? I don't know what else you can say to me after that, because he would not have done that. When I went to Pride this last year, I had said publicly on our church website, come join me at Pride. That's where Christ will be. I promise you'll see him. And people thought that was just, really? I said, he's not a conference. He's walking among these kids. I said, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw some sandals and, the robe go by. Because I'm telling you, I feel him stronger there, down in the dirt, hugging these kids that are painted and naked and whatever, and just telling them you love them. Because I cannot tell you how many of those kids say, my family says I'm. And I said, well, I love you, and I don't think you are, and I think you're perfect. And, So I don't know. As LDS, we have to do better. We have to be better. We know better. And don't tell me we don't, because we do. So whatever you're afraid of, step outside of it and start loving.
Do you think church leaders have sanctioned that and given enough freedom to members of the church to be open to loving and accepting?
I think it's starting to happen. If you look at only the 2 hours of church, I feel like it's safer for my kids to go to church now.
It's a great point. I developed on the Latter Gay Stories website a family resource guide to help have an LGBT discussion in your home, merely and for the sole reason, knowing that with 1 hour less in church and with a focus on having discussions around a kitchen table instead of around a podium in a chapel, that discussions like this are more likely to happen because they are impacting a family directly.
Correct.
And so I believe that I'm completely on board with that. I believe that there are people out there who are willing to have this discussion. Just like you brought up with Love Loud, I wonder if this discussion isn't happening more frequently and more often and with more fervor and genuine this ability to have them because a church leader hasn't stood at a pulpit to say it's okay.
Right. Right.
We've had a few discussions, like Elder Christofferson said, you can attend a gay marriage, you can go to Pride, you can do all these things as long as you're not harming the reputation of the church or pulling people away. The rest of it's free game, but that seemed to have fallen upon deaf ears, or members of the church just choose not to listen to that.
Well, I wish that most people would have gotten the letter I got from Elder Holland. I should have brought it down. I'd written him a letter during the throes of all this, and he had come here on a state conference, a surprise state conference, and I'd written him just talking about my son and what can they do and all that. He wrote me back and said, "Dear Cher," not "Dear Sister McCoy," and he wrote it. Nobody typed it, and he said, I just want you to know that your family will be okay, your son will be okay, it'll all be okay. And to me, it was like, oh, well, there's my new patriarchal blessing, because that's all I need to know. And I believe it'll be okay. I think your family, I think everybody's family is going to be okay. You just need to relax and just start loving people. Listen, I can do church in 15 minutes. You get up, you say the opening prayer, you do the sacrament, and then whoever wants to say the talk, say, okay, so now go out and just love everyone. You're done.
Bye.
What else can you say from that? What do we need to know that we haven't already been told? Love everyone. Stop judging. That's not your job. So that's how I feel, and that's how I deal with people online. Because you know what? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? You think these people are going to come take your lives? I remember when Prop 8 was going on, I kept saying, I don't get this. How is this hurting my family, my marriage? I never understood it. Never understood it.
According to some church leaders, that would promoting gay marriage would convince straight people to get unmarried. I mean, that was the argument.
Okay, well.
You're still married?
Yeah, it's 45 years of it. I better tell him that's good. And you know what? I mean, my son wants to get married. I'm telling you, we're planning it just as much as we plan my daughter's. It doesn't matter. I will go and stand for somebody. I'll go be one of the moms. If you need a mom to stand there because your own mom didn't come, heck yeah, I'd be there. I'll fly there. It's whatever you need. To me, it's just all about that, because your payback is so much better than what you're giving out. It's selfishness, I know.
So to the closeted young man or woman listening to this podcast, what advice do you have for them?
I would say find someone that you trust and you love, and your parents are probably better than you think they are, but in case they're not, please find somebody and just come and find us. We're here. I don't care where you are. We have somebody who will help you. What
is your advice to a bishop or stake president?
Oh gosh, that they need to just drop whatever it is they've got at the door and just listen and pray with them and don't judge them, because that's not even your job. And also I think they ought to get educated. And I think that they need to stop telling these kids to pray it away, because that's not going to happen. So you can say a prayer with them, sure. To bless them, give them a blessing. What would that hurt? But you just got to love them and accept them. And if they don't choose the path you think they're choosing, just got to love them. But I wish a bishop, and, again, they have to I think they have to listen to the Spirit. Not a handbook, the Spirit.
Do you think there's a difference between personal revelation and general revelation?
Yes.
That maybe we don't fully understand the law of chastity?
No, I don't think we do. When I sat in that meeting, when we were talking about the website, the Mormon Gay, they said, and they asked us, it was like 12 hours of what don't you like, what do you like? And I said, why does the word chastity have to appear 52 times? We get it. We all get it. So why does that have to be particularly sent to these kids? And I would like someone to explain why they can't be loved, because they can. It's not fair. So until someone can explain that to me, I don't know what to tell them.
So you think there's more to this topic than just what happens in the dark of night in the bedroom?
Yeah. I don't think it's all about sex.
I don't think it is either.
I don't know. It's about love and self-esteem.
Companionship.
Companionship. Who wouldn't? What a kind of a prequel to this is, I have a good friend that at work, my old work, and she's LDS, and she had been drinking and drinking and drinking because she was trying to deny that she was gay. Well, what was so interesting was, the year before when I was working with her and I met her, I thought, oh, she's a gay Mormon. And it never occurred to me that she wasn't. And I know that's kind of judging her, but it was there. I mean, and then when she I'm gay, and I said, okay, well, I know. And, so it's interesting because she was trying to dull it with pills. That's just not going to work. They've got to love themselves. And so I really worked with her. So working with Blue, it was like I had to take my own advice and really just dig in and say, we love you no matter what. But it is tough out there. You know, when people find out you're gay, you lose your job sometimes. Sometimes you lose your housing. And so then you have to be an advocate that way and really get nasty. Sorry.
If you had 15 minutes or more with a general authority or a leader of the church, what would you say to them?
Well, I'll tell you what I told President Oaks. He was behind a dual glass watching this. And they said, if you knew that was a general authority behind that glass, what would you say?
This is part of the Mormon and Gay website.
Yes.
Okay.
I turned and said, if that's President Oaks back there, I need him to stop talking. Just stop. You're not helping. You're hurting. So stop. If I had 15 minutes with him, we'd have a lot to say. And I would be very honest. I wouldn't be intimidated. But he needs to look into his own self and look to his own family. You know what? Is this really how you love? Is to hammer people and tell them that your kids aren't worth it? Sure we are. And how are you right and everybody else is wrong?
Apostolic authority?
Well, I would say that Dieter has apostolic authority. So does President Holland. So explain that to me.
So we should just love.
It's a crazy idea, I know. Love and sometimes be militant, but love, yeah. It is easier to love though, because people, when they see that you're all, about that, then they kind of avoid you. But my bishop asked me one time, why do you come to church? I said, you know what? Sometimes the only reason I come is to make sure that people don't talk crap about my LGBT. He says, is that all? I go, well, no, I love Christ, but sometimes I'm there to be the block because I don't want. So you know, people get to a place where they have to respect it. Now you can overdo it a lot, but I've become one of those Mormons, according to this lady in my ward.
Gotcha.
Because I want it to change.
I know your type.
I know.
And I like to associate with you.
Good, because I am one of those Mormons.
Any last words for the podcast?
I would say that any parents, I would like to figure out how to write a book on how to save yourself grief from the time you hear that your child's gay to try to get you through about 20 steps to get to the point where you're happy and okay with it. Because all that grief in between doesn't teach you anything.
I'd love to co-write it with you.
Oh, I wish you would, seriously, because there has to be, don't do this, and this. Don't waste your time with that. You need to go from this to this, and your life will just automatically, my life's not perfect. We have all kinds of issues, but you know what? It's still so much better. And, you just love and be loved, and it's just an easier road. I don't know how to explain it too much, but I can tell these LDS families that are just suffering, just come and find us. We will help you. You don't have to suffer. It's not the end of the world. Heavenly Father's going to love us. We're all going to sit there, and we're all going to be fine. We're going to be fine. We'll be a family. You'll be a family.
And we'll all survive.
And I'm going to tell you something, that all those righteous people who think on this side of the line, when they find out that line shifts, they're the ones that are going to be struggling. Not the ones like you and I that know and seen this. When that line shifts to where the church says, hey, they can be married in the temple, or whatever comes of that, because I believe that there are going to be great things happening. I hope I'm around to see it. But when that line shifts, those good members better get ready, because it is coming, and you better get prepared, because it's not going to be like you thought it was. I
think there's a great parallel between exactly what you're speaking of now and 1978.
Exactly what I was going to say, because I was there.
That was an immediate, forget everything we said prior.
Correct. And let me tell you, even though I was in Arizona and then we moved to Utah, but in Arizona, there wasn't that huge shift, but there were those that were, no, I'm not accepting that. And they left the church. These very strong, boy, you got to go by the book. So don't get hung up in that, because I'm telling you, this gospel, no matter what, changes. And there's new words coming every day. Every day. So hang on, we're here.
I love it.
It's coming.
Thank you for sitting down.
You're welcome.
And sharing this with the podcast.
You're welcome. People are going to go, Okay, Cheryl, go away.
Are you kidding? You're infectious.
Well, I love my LGBT. I wish I was part of you.
Well, you make good LGBT people.
I do. I make really cute ones.
That's right.
And if I'd known, I would have made a few more. Though I have a hope for some of these grandkids. No, I hope they don't see this. But anyway, because they'll go, what, Mom?
Your grandma's rooting for you.
Yeah, I am. I've already let them know. If you are, if you're not, you have me for a grandmother. They're like, okay.
Is there a better place to raise a grandchild than in an affirming and loving family?
No, not even. No. And if I have to raise somebody else's, okay, bring them.
I have a great point. The door's open.
If you don't want your gay child, send them to me. I'll be their mom. That's been my big thing that I put out there. You know what? If your parents reject you, come to me and I'll buy you Coke and you can live here. We'll find a room for you. I'll get rid of a dog and you'll be fine.
I love it. Cher, again, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate everything you're doing for the LGBT community and for your willingness to sit down and have a discussion like this for the podcast.
Absolutely. I hope I helped.
I think so. This has been another edition of Latter Gay Stories podcast. We thank you for following along as well. If you are watching the podcast on Facebook or YouTube, we invite you to make a comment below. If you have a question directly for Cher, we invite you to write that, type that below, and let's begin a little bit of a dialogue or discussion. We talked a lot about allyship and what it takes to better understand. And more importantly, we also discussed resources and where a family member turns when a son or daughter comes out or begins to identify along the LGBT spectrum. There are not many resources out there available. Even today, where the internet is full of opinions, it's still difficult and not mainstream for a family member to know exactly where to turn. People like Cher, the people who follow this podcast and those who are commenting on the episodes that we have provided are great people to chat with. And that's really why I encourage people to discuss this right here on the video versions of the podcast where we can have a real-time discussion. Because you begin to see the people who are actively and openly engaged in helping further this cause. So we invite you to join the community. And that's easily found at our Facebook page or on our Facebook page. You can search us and find us at Latter Gay Stories. If you are listening to this on an audio version through one of our podcast channels like Apple, Google Play or Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or even on Alexa through TuneIn, we invite you to rate this podcast where you're listening to it. And if it's shareable, share away. And we also appreciate any great positive reviews that'll allow us to move a little further up on the podcast list so more people can find topics like this and help them become more readily available. The Latter Gay Stories podcast is your opportunity to continue writing your latter gay story. Thanks again for following.